Max Wright played Willie Tanner in ALF from 1986 at age 43, portraying a well-meaning but perpetually stressed father trying to manage ALF's chaos. Despite his comedic timing, Wright resented working with the puppet, feeling trapped in a role that derailed his career. After ALF ended, he struggled to find meaningful work, with only minor television appearances. His personal life was equally turbulent. Married to Linda Ibarrando, with whom he had 2 children, their relationship suffered due to his long battle with drug and alcohol addiction. He was arrested multiple times in the early 2000s, further isolating himself from Hollywood. His health declined rapidly after being diagnosed with lymphoma in the 1990s, and though he achieved remission, the disease returned in his later years. He passed away on June 26, 2019, at age 75, after a long, painful struggle with cancer, largely forgotten by the industry. Max Wright played Willie Tanner in ALF from 1986 at age 43, portraying a well-meaning but perpetually stressed father trying to manage ALF's chaos. Despite his comedic timing, Wright resented working with the puppet, feeling trapped in a role that derailed his career. After ALF ended, he struggled to find meaningful work, with only minor television appearances. His personal life was equally turbulent. Married to Linda Ibarrando, with whom he had 2 children, their relationship suffered due to his long battle with drug and alcohol addiction. He was arrested multiple times in the early 2000s, further isolating himself from Hollywood. His health declined rapidly after being diagnosed with lymphoma in the 1990s, and though he achieved remission, the disease returned in his later years. He passed away on June 26, 2019, at age 75, after a long, painful struggle with cancer, largely forgotten by the industry. David Ogden Stiers portrayed Flaky Pete in ALF in 1988 at the age of 46, bringing warmth and eccentricity to the quirky, wise character. While audiences adored his performances in MASH * and numerous voice roles, Stiers lived a painfully secretive life. Privately, he struggled with his sexuality, coming out as gay only later in life, after decades of internal torment and isolation. He never married and had no children, spending much of his life alone, pouring himself into his work to avoid confronting his loneliness. As he aged, his once thriving career slowed, leaving him in a quiet, solitary existence. His health declined as he battled bladder cancer, and in his final years, he withdrew from the world, too weak to work and too proud to ask for help. On March 3, 2018, at the age of 75, he died in seclusion, with no close family by his side, his life marked by quiet suffering and unspoken regrets. Benji Gregory starred as Brian Tanner in ALF from 1986 at age 8, playing the sweet, innocent child who shared a strong bond with ALF. While his character brought warmth to the show, Gregory's own childhood was far more troubled. Like many child stars, he struggled to find steady acting work after ALF and eventually abandoned Hollywood altogether. Searching for purpose, he joined the U.S. Navy but was medically discharged before completing his service due to ongoing struggles with depression, insomnia, and PTSD. His personal tragedies deepened in 1998 when his younger sister, unresponsive to treatment for a rare illness, died unexpectedly. In June 2024, his life took a tragic turn when he fell asleep in his car in Arizona, unaware of the scorching summer temperatures. He was found dead on June 13, 2024, at age 46, succumbing to extreme heat exposure and complications from liver disease. Liz Sheridan joined ALF in 1986 at the age of 57 as Raquel Akmonek, the nosy neighbor whose suspicions about the Tanners often led to humorous yet tense situations. Off-screen, Sheridan had a fascinating but often painful past, once being romantically involved with a young James Dean before his tragic death, a loss she never fully recovered from. Though she found success in television, particularly with her recurring role as Jerry's mother on Seinfeld, her career never reached the heights she had once dreamed of. She lived much of her later life alone, never remarrying after the loss of her longtime partner, Dale Wales. Her final years were marked by a slow decline in health, with dementia gradually erasing her sharp wit and vibrant personality. On April 15, 2022, she passed away at the age of 93, alone in her home, with few left to mourn her passing. And Mira portrayed Dorothy Halligan in ALF beginning in 1987 at the age of 58, bringing warmth and humor to the role of Kate Tanner's mother. Though she enjoyed success alongside her husband, Jerry Stiller, as part of the comedy duo Stiller and Mira, her life was not without its tragedies. Mira struggled with severe depression throughout her life, a battle that often left her feeling isolated despite her comedic persona. Her marriage to Stiller, while long-lasting, was fraught with difficulties, as both struggled to balance their careers with family life. In her later years, Mira was plagued by health issues, and her once bright spirit dimmed under the weight of old age and illness. On May 23, 2015, she passed away at the age of 85, her death officially attributed to natural causes, though those close to her knew she had suffered deeply in her final years. Cleavon Little played George Foley in ALF in 1987 at the age of 48, portraying a charismatic and witty character who often lightened the mood with his charm. In reality, however, Cleavon's life was marked by profound loneliness and frustration. Rising to fame with Blazing Saddles, he struggled to find roles that matched his talent, often being typecast or ignored in an industry hesitant to embrace black leading men. Despite his charm on screen, his personal life was a series of disappointments. His marriage to Valerie Wiggins ended in divorce, and his only daughter, Kayla, became estranged from him due to his long absences and deepening reliance on drugs to cope with his struggles. His health deteriorated rapidly, and his once promising career became a series of rejections. He spent his final years in isolation, drowning in regret and fading memories of past glories. On October 22, 1992, at the age of 53, he succumbed to colon cancer, passing away alone in his home. Bill Daly played Larry in ALF from 1987 at age 60, portraying a friendly, light-hearted character who brought moments of comic relief. Best known for his earlier role as Roger Healy in I Dream of Jeannie, Daly found his career slowly fading by the 1980s, with ALF being one of his last significant television roles. While his on-screen persona was cheerful, his personal life carried immense grief. His first wife tragically passed away, and though he remarried, he never fully recovered from the loss. In his later years, he struggled with loneliness and ill health, spending much of his time in relative seclusion, avoiding Hollywood events and public appearances. His health continued to decline, and by the time he died on September 4, 2018, at age 91, his passing was barely noted in the media, a quiet, tragic end for a man who had once filled television screens with laughter. Marcia Wallace played Mrs. Lyman in ALF in 1987 at the age of 45, portraying a warm and nurturing character with a sharp wit. Behind the scenes, however, Marcia endured immense tragedy. Her husband, Dennis Hawley, died of pancreatic cancer in 1992, leaving her a widow with their adopted son, Michael. The grief of losing her husband consumed her, and though she maintained a strong public persona, she struggled with depression and health issues. Diagnosed with breast cancer, she fought bravely but suffered numerous relapses. Financial troubles loomed over her as medical bills mounted, and the roles she once secured effortlessly became harder to find. She spent her final years in a quiet, dimly lit apartment, haunted by memories of the laughter and love she had lost. On October 25, 2013, at the age of 70, she passed away due to complications from breast cancer, her once vibrant spirit extinguished by years of suffering and heartache. Nedra Voles portrayed Catwoman in ALF in 1987 at the age of 79, bringing her signature charm and eccentricity to the role. A veteran character actress, she spent decades playing quirky elderly women, but despite her long career, she was rarely given substantial roles. The entertainment industry loved her humor but never saw her as more than comic relief. Off-screen, she endured profound heartbreak. She married Harold Voles, with whom she had 2 children, but his early death left her widowed for many years. Though her children remained in her life, the loneliness of old age weighed heavily on her. As the industry moved on, she found herself increasingly forgotten, and declining health only worsened her isolation. Her later years were spent in relative obscurity, battling frailty and diminishing vision. On January 20, 2003, she passed away at the age of 94. Mickey Jones portrayed Artie in ALF in 1986 at the age of 45, bringing a jovial and lovable presence to the screen. Off-screen, his life was anything but joyful. A former drummer for Bob Dylan and Kenny Rogers, Mickey's transition to acting never brought him the same thrill as music once had. His marriage to Phyllis Jean Starr, though lasting for decades, was filled with turbulence, as his long tours and erratic lifestyle led to deep resentment between them. His relationship with his children was strained, as he was often absent during their formative years. As he aged, diabetes ravaged his body, leading to multiple health complications. The man who once thrived in the spotlight found himself confined to a hospital bed, unable to perform, unable to escape the slow decay of his body. On February 7, 2018, at the age of 76, he succumbed to complications from diabetes, fading away in a sterile hospital room, far from the roaring crowds that once Frederick de Cordova played Fred de Cordova in ALF in 1988 at the age of 78, portraying a confident and commanding presence. A seasoned producer and director, he was best known for his long association with The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, but as Carson grew more distant in later years, Frederick found himself increasingly sidelined. His once glittering career dimmed, leaving him with a sense of professional isolation. His marriage to Janet Thomas lasted for decades, but beneath the surface, it was filled with tension and emotional detachment. The couple never had children, and as Frederick aged, he grappled with a growing sense of emptiness. Financial setbacks added to his struggles, and his health rapidly declined. By the end of his life, he suffered from memory loss and physical frailty, spending his final days in a state of confusion and regret. He died on September 15, 2001, at the age of 90. Eugene Graydock played Pope John Paul II in ALF in 1988 at the age of 63, delivering a performance that exuded wisdom and spiritual strength. He was widely recognized for his uncanny resemblance to the Pope, leading to numerous impersonation roles in film and television, but this typecasting prevented him from being taken seriously as an actor. Despite appearing in Sister Act and Hot Shots, he never achieved mainstream success, and the industry largely dismissed him as a novelty. His personal life was marked by a quiet but unfulfilled marriage to Irene Graydock. The couple had no children, a reality that deeply saddened Eugene, as he longed for a legacy beyond his fleeting Hollywood appearances. As he aged, his career faded, and he struggled with feelings of irrelevance. His later years were spent in solitude, battling health issues and reflecting on what could have been. On February 28, 2004, he died at the age of 84, leaving him as a forgotten figure in Hollywood history. Sam Whipple portrayed Sam in ALF in 1986 at the age of 26, bringing warmth and affability to his role. Though he had recurring parts in 7 Days and Open House, his career never reached the heights he had hoped for. Hollywood often overlooked him, relegating him to minor roles that failed to showcase his true talent. This professional stagnation weighed heavily on him, leading to persistent self-doubt and frustration. In his personal life, he married young, but the relationship quickly crumbled, ending in a painful divorce. He never remarried, and without children or a stable support system, he struggled with loneliness. In his late 30s, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, an unexpected and devastating blow. The illness drained his strength, forcing him to withdraw further from the career he had fought so hard to sustain. Despite undergoing treatments, his condition worsened, and he passed away on June 3, 2002, at the age of 41. Ed McMahon played himself in ALF in 1988 at the age of 65, exuding his signature charisma and humor. As Johnny Carson's longtime sidekick on The Tonight Show, he was once one of television's most recognizable figures, but after Carson retired, his own career floundered. Poor financial decisions and reckless spending led to crushing debt, forcing him to endure public humiliation as he faced foreclosure on his home. His personal life was equally tumultuous. After 2 failed marriages, he wed Victoria Valentine, but even this relationship was fraught with difficulties. Though he had multiple children, estrangement from some of them left him emotionally isolated in his later years. Struggling with deteriorating health, he was in and out of hospitals, suffering from bone cancer and pneumonia. His final years were a tragic contrast to his once glamorous life, filled with financial ruin and physical decline. On June 23, 2009, he died at the age of 86 due to complications from pneumonia. Kathleen Freeman portrayed Betty Suzla in ALF in 1988 at the age of 65, bringing warmth and humor to the role. Freeman was a veteran character actress, having spent decades in Hollywood playing everything from nosy neighbors to strict nuns. But for all her comedic brilliance, she lived a life of sacrifice. Never married, she devoted herself entirely to her career, though Hollywood rarely rewarded her beyond typecast roles. She often spoke of the loneliness that accompanied her later years, lamenting that she had spent her life making people laugh while silently carrying her own despair. In the early 2000s, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, though she kept it hidden from most of her colleagues. She continued to work even as the disease progressed, performing in the Full Monty on Broadway until she could no longer stand. On August 23, 2001, at the age of 78, she succumbed to the illness, passing away alone in a hospital bed. Darwin Jostin took on the role of the dog pound attendant in ALF in 1986 when he was 49 years old. His character was a no-nonsense, pragmatic man, devoted to his job but often indifferent to the emotions of others. Jostin, however, was a man burdened by the fickleness of Hollywood. His breakout role in Assault on Precinct 13 earned him brief acclaim, but success quickly dwindled, leaving him struggling to find meaningful work. Reduced to minor roles and obscurity, he battled financial instability for much of his later career. His personal life was no less tragic. Twice married, twice divorced, his relationships crumbled under the weight of his professional failures. He had one son, Matthew, whom he barely saw due to prolonged custody battles and estrangement. As his career faded, so did his health, and he was diagnosed with leukemia, a battle he fought mostly alone. He passed away on June 1, 1998, at the age of 60. And Ramsey took on the role of Ethel Buttonwood in ALF in 1988 at the age of 59, bringing her signature stern yet strangely endearing presence to the character. Ramsey, already famous for her terrifying performance in The Goonies, was a master of playing abrasive, domineering women. But beneath the tough exterior, she suffered profoundly. Years of illness plagued her career, and by the time she filmed her ALF appearance, esophageal cancer had already begun to ravage her body. Her marriage to actor Logan Ramsey was one of the few sources of stability in her life, but even that was overshadowed by the constant battle with pain and declining health. Despite her fierce determination to continue acting, her illness left her weak, forcing her into extended hospital stays. The suffering became unbearable, and by mid-1988, she was bedridden, unable to speak due to complications from her cancer treatments. She passed away on August 11, 1988, at the age of 59. Bob Denver made a guest appearance in ALF in 1987 at the age of 52, portraying a light-hearted and bumbling version of his iconic Gilligan persona. On screen, he was beloved for his comedic misadventures, but behind the scenes, Denver's life was fraught with disappointment. Forever typecast as the affable fool, he found himself locked in a career he had long grown to resent. Attempts to take on more serious roles were met with rejection, leaving him to make ends meet through low-paying convention appearances and nostalgic television spots. His personal life suffered tremendously. Though he was married 4 times, none of his relationships were truly stable. His marriage to Dreama Perry lasted, but financial strains and his increasing reclusiveness cast a shadow over their later years. Denver endured health struggles that culminated in a dire cancer diagnosis. He succumbed to pneumonia following throat cancer surgery on September 2, 2005, at the age of 70. Earl Bowen stepped into the role of Warren in ALF in 1987 at the age of 46, bringing a wry, comedic charm to the character. Known for his distinct voice and commanding presence, Bowen found steady work in Hollywood, particularly in voice acting and character roles. Yet, despite a career that seemed consistent, he often lamented his lack of mainstream recognition. He was most famous for his role as Dr. Silberman in the Terminator series, but even that success could not erase the years of frustration at being overlooked. His personal life was marred by sorrow. His first wife, Carol Keene, passed away after a long illness, leaving him emotionally shattered. Though he remarried, the loss of Carol haunted him, casting a shadow over his later years. His health deteriorated rapidly in the early 2020s, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, an illness that progressed aggressively. He passed away on January 5, 2023, at the age of 81. Peter Iacangelo appeared as Lee Fraser in ALF in 1989 at the age of 41, playing a tough, no-nonsense authority figure. Though his role was brief, his presence was commanding, a trait that defined much of his acting career. But behind the camera, he faced relentless struggles. His career never took off as he had hoped, and he spent years bouncing between small roles and long periods of unemployment. This professional instability strained his personal life, and his marriage eventually collapsed under the weight of financial and emotional turmoil. His 2 children drifted away, leaving him to navigate the latter half of his life alone. As he aged, health issues mounted, and he found himself battling chronic pain and depression, with little support. The industry that once welcomed him now had no place for an aging character actor, and he spent his final years in relative obscurity. He passed away on November 17, 2021, at the age of 73. Casey Kasem guest starred in ALF in 1990 at the age of 58, playing himself as the upbeat, beloved radio icon. While his voice was instantly recognizable to millions, his personal life was plagued by devastating family conflicts. His second marriage to Jean Kasem caused an irreparable divide between him and his children from his first marriage, leading to years of bitter feuding. When he was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, his final years became an unthinkable tragedy. His wife moved him across states, cutting off access to his children, sparking legal battles that turned his suffering into a media circus. Isolated, unable to recognize those he loved, and caught in a cruel tug-of-war, his final months were filled with pain and neglect. He passed away on June 15, 2014, at the age of 82, his body left unburied for months as his family continued their bitter legal disputes. Richard Rote portrayed Walter Burke in ALF in 1987 at the age of 54, giving life to a wise and thoughtful character. A prolific actor with over 130 credits, he never achieved leading man status, leaving him perpetually in the shadows of Hollywood. Though respected, he struggled with insecurity, feeling his contributions were often overlooked. His marriage to his longtime partner, Kathy, was strong, but career disappointments cast a lingering sadness over their life together. They had no children, something he regretted as he aged, feeling a growing loneliness in his later years. As he grew older, health issues emerged, including cognitive decline, which made him increasingly dependent on his wife. In his final years, his memory faded, leaving him lost in a world that had already largely forgotten him. He passed away on August 5, 2022, at the age of 89, his death barely making headlines, a quiet end for a man who spent his life searching for recognition. Alan Hale Jr. played Skipper Jonas Grummie in ALF in 1987 at the age of 66, bringing his signature warmth and authority to the role. Best known for Gilligan's Island, he found himself permanently tied to his iconic character, which led to severe typecasting and dwindling opportunities. His later career was marked by minor guest roles and financial instability, forcing him to make public appearances at fan conventions to make ends meet. Married to Naomi Hale, he remained devoted to her, but the couple endured financial struggles that strained their later years. His only son, Alan Bryan, grew distant as Hale battled illness, leaving him to face his decline largely alone. Diagnosed with thymus cancer, he suffered greatly but kept his pain hidden from the public. His final days were spent in quiet suffering, far removed from the bright lights of Hollywood. He passed away on January 2, 1990, at the age of 68, his once booming presence fading into quiet obscurity. Fran Bennett played Mrs. Watson in ALF in 1989 at the age of 52, portraying a nurturing and wise figure. A gifted actress with a commanding presence, she faced systemic racism in Hollywood, which prevented her from receiving the roles she truly deserved. Though she worked steadily in television and theater, she was often relegated to minor parts, a frustrating reality for someone of her talent. She never married and had no children, though she had a long-term partner who eventually left, citing her career's instability as a strain on their relationship. As she aged, her health declined, and financial struggles forced her into a modest retirement, far from the industry that had never fully embraced her. She died alone in her home on September 11, 2021, at the age of 84, her passing a quiet reflection of a career that never reached the heights it should have. John Pinette appeared as Howie Anderson in ALF in 1990 at the age of 26, bringing humor and kindness to the role. A brilliant stand-up comedian, he struggled throughout his life with obesity, depression, and addiction. Though his career flourished in the comedy world, personal demons haunted him, leading to multiple stints in rehab for food addiction and painkiller dependency. He never married and had no children, often turning to his work as a distraction from his personal loneliness. His health declined rapidly in his 40s, with his weight and substance issues leading to severe medical complications. In his final years, he desperately tried to reclaim his health, but his body had already suffered too much damage. He was found dead in a hotel room on April 5, 2014, at the age of 50, succumbing to a pulmonary embolism, a tragic and solitary end for a man who lived to make others laugh. Who's your favorite character in ALF? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.